had a few situations where I thought I had encountered ghosts or other paranormal entities, but I have two specific encounters that really freaked me out and truly made me believe. The first one was probably about 9 years ago or so. I'm 26 now, so I was about 17 at the time. At this point of time, I did not believe ghosts were real. My friend was telling me about this girl ghost that has been in this house for as long as he can remember, and he had this genius idea to be ghost hunters and catch some paranormal activity. So we grabbed my phone, went into a dark room where she supposedly walks a lot, used the built-in voice recording app, and started asking questions like the true ghost hunters we were. So we keep asking questions, and after a few minutes, we listened to the recording. Doing this about 3 times, we got nothing. As expected from me, we were finally like, fuck it, one more time, and if we don't get anything, it's whatever. So we asked the questions as before and don't hear anything until listening to the recording. We start listening to the recording and don't really hear anything for a minute or two until we ask, can you please make a knock or some type of noise please? And right after we asked that question, I shit you not, was a little girl who sounded like she was sitting right next to us say, sorry. I just about shit myself, I'm not going to lie. The voice was so clear and kind of sad sounding. We got up and left that room. And just a heads up, my friend at this point had no younger sister or relatives. I still have the phone, I just need to find the correct charger. But maybe I'll be able to pull it off at some point and upload it. My next story is the one that more or less scared the living shit out of me and still fucks with me thinking about it to this day. This was about 8 years ago, maybe 7. I went to a friend's house to play in an online Halo tournament since he had better internet than I did. After the matches, I turned off his computer and console since it was storming really bad. I was there alone at this point since he and his mother were both at work. I decided to head to the living room to play with his cat since there wasn't anything to do really. Didn't really use smartphones at this time. As I was sitting playing with the cat, I heard footsteps from the back door lead into the bathroom and turn on the light. I scooted over and saw the now on light and door open and went back to the cat, just assuming his mom came back from work early and went through the back door for some reason. Next thing I hear is the bathroom water start running, and at this point I just start assuming she wants to take a bath. Door is still wide open. I sit there for about another 20 to 30 minutes with the bathroom water still running until I'm like, okay, let me go see if that's actually her. So I get up and head towards the bathroom with the running water, and as soon as I peek inside, the sound of the running water completely stops. No water in the bathroom whatsoever. At this point, I'm freaked the fuck out and I think I'm losing my mind. I call my friend to come get me and I get the fuck out of there. My other friend had stayed there before too, hearing the exact same thing in the middle of the night and also whispering names. We had never discussed this until a year after he moved, or so there was no way of him knowing what I heard. My friend that had lived there never had any experiences like this at the house, or maybe he was just oblivious. About a year or two later, he talked to someone's family who owned the house before. He explained to them our stories and come to find out her grandfather had killed himself in the bathtub. Thanks for taking the time to read. These aren't made up and really happened. If you have any questions, just let me know and I'll answer the best I can. My parents died in a freak car crash about a year ago. Within 5 months of their passing, I had settled the estate with my siblings and they had agreed that I should get the house. Out of all of us, I'm the only one with a child and pets, and I could really use the space. At first, it was a blessing to be able to live rent-free and essentially off the grid. My parents had purchased the house when they retired and had raved about how clean and fresh the well water was and how gorgeous the autumns were living out in the woods. Having moved in August, I couldn't disagree. Everything certainly seemed perfect. My daughter was just starting to walk when things started to go wrong. "Mama!" she shrieked one night, toddling over to me as I was making dinner. "What is it, Jellybean?" I asked. My daughter clung to me with impressive strength for such a small child, her tiny body trembling. I turned away from the stove so I could pick her up. She was pale and clammy, little panicked noises squeaking out of her throat. Concerned, I turned the stove off and hugged her close. I started to walk down the hallway to take her to her room, and she screamed. "What?" I gasped. "What is it?" "No," she said. I didn't really expect her to be able to answer me. Her vocabulary was obviously limited to the few small words a 1-year-old can generally say. But we never struggled to communicate. Jewel patterned and craned her neck around to look down the hall. That's when I saw it. A huge black shape shuffled down to the end of the hall. As soon as it stopped moving, it seemed to blend in with the area around it, only slightly warping around air around it, forcing me to squint to see it. "What the fuck?" I wheezed, backing up a step. A low growl rippled down the hallway. I scrambled backwards towards the back door, torn between wanting to protect Jewel and not wanting to turn my back on the thing, whatever it was. I had my hand on the knob when I heard the heavy rapid footsteps of the thing advancing down the hallway. I was about to scream when I looked down at my daughter. She opened her mouth to scream and inhaled and stopped. Her mouth was wide in a frozen scream, unable to expel her cry of fright. I tried to open the door, but the expression on her face stopped me cold. "Jewel, breathe," I begged. "Breathe." My daughter collapsed in my arms, and I felt a weird energy surge as the creature caught up to us, its hot hands grabbing my daughter and cradling it to its chest. I screamed and tried to grab her back, but my daughter was already disappearing, dissolving into the camouflage torso of this beast. When my daughter had been absorbed, the creature opened its mouth and screamed in my daughter's voice. I covered a strangled croak of horror and slid down the doorway to the floor, not caring if I died. "Goodbye, baby," the thing said in my father's voice as it turned away. I had initially brushed it off when I woke up that first morning and was greeted with the sight of my bedroom door wide open. My bed faced that door, and to avoid looking at the dark hallway that led from the room, I always closed it before going to sleep. so it did come as a surprise to me to find it open in the morning. But I could have not closed the door all the way last night. Then the draft from the AC managed to nudge it, and then the hinge caused the door to swing all the way open. It was reasonable, so I went about my day per usual. Soon again, it was night time, only this time I made sure to close my bedroom door until I heard the slight click of the lock sliding into place. Morning came once again, and as any other day besides yesterday, I woke to my closed bedroom door. I got up, dressed for work, and headed into my living room. The door to my pantry was open, not cracked open or half open, but so completely wide open that the door was resting as far as you could go on the connected wall. Last night, I had gone out to eat with some friends, so I know that I wasn't hungry in the evening and wouldn't have gone into the pantry, but maybe I left it open that morning when I left for work. I had gone in there yesterday morning and was a bit rushed, so I could have left it open. It was reasonable. Still, I forced myself to go about my day unfazed. The next morning, the door to my guest bedroom was wide open. I never went in there since I barely ever had guests, and only about once every few months did I go in there to clean it. However, I happened to stop by that room the other day to grab some extra sheets. Since I rarely go down that hallway, never mind look down it every day, I could have left it open when I grabbed the sheets and didn't realize that I didn't close the door all the way. It was reasonable. The next day passed by in a paranoid blur. I kept checking over my shoulder, never quite focusing what I was doing at work. Sleep didn't seem like it would come easy, so I downed a few melatonins and was out. Early next morning, I shut off my alarm and sulked about getting ready. I was still in a little drowsy from the pills, but nonetheless headed out of the bedroom without delay. I was met with a slight breeze as I went further into my house. I rubbed my arms as the house seemed to grow colder and colder. As I made it to the living room, my feet froze as I took sight of my front door completely open. Now, I knew that I definitely did not leave the front door to my house unlocked and wide open. The only logical conclusion was that someone must have broken in, stolen some valuables I had. I phoned 911, texted my boss that I would be late, and waited for the cops to arrive. They came shortly thereafter and immediately set to work. They investigated everything in my house, from my front door to my bedroom. I sat on my living room sofa the entire time, and once they had finished, they came to join me in the conjoined love seats across. Now, the memory of the conversation is slightly fuzzy, but it went as follows almost exactly. "Miss," one of the officers began, "did you notice any valuables of yours missing? Any jewelry, or maybe some money?" I had shaken my head, saying, "No, I don't keep much cash in the house, and the only expensive jewelry I have is my wedding ring. Last night, I had fallen asleep with it on, since most days I couldn't bear to take it off even though Philip and I were divorced. It remained on my finger even now as I type this out. There doesn't seem to be any forced entry," the other officer began, clasping his hands in front of him. "Heck, I'd even go on to say that whoever opened that front door had a key. Are you sure you closed it last night?" "Yes," I sat up straight in my seat, annoyed that these officers would accuse me of such. "You think that I wouldn't make sure my own front door was closed before going to sleep?" One of the officers held a hand up, gesturing for me to take it easy. "Ma'am, we are just saying, There is not a single sign of a robbery. Nothing is missing or indicates a break-in. He put the hand down. Does anyone else have keys to your house? No one, just me. I bought this place after my divorce. Do you keep a key under the mat outside, or any hidden key that remains outside the house that someone could have found? No, I'm far too paranoid to do that. Both of the officers stood up, signaling that it was time for them to leave. They told me to retrace my steps of last night and to rethink about when I think I closed my front door. Then one of them gave me their card, telling me that I can call them personally if anything else happens, since they are already familiar with my case. They probably thought I was some crazed loon who had gotten drunk and or high last night and forgotten to close my front door. But I mean, what other explanation is there? Is there even one? I just can't believe that I had slept through the night, unaware that my house was wide open for anyone to walk into. I ended up skipping work that day. Something was happening in my house that occurred while I slept, and I was going to get to the bottom of it. I couldn't just brush it off like before. That night, I slipped into bed. I knew that whatever was causing my doors to open only occurred while I slept. Yet, when I closed my eyes, sleep wouldn't come. Maybe the fear of this situation was enough to keep me awake. A few hours passed, and I may have dozed off, because when I checked my clock, it was 2 a.m. This was probably a good time to check on all the doors in my house, to see if anything had happened. I went to get out of my bed when something sounded outside of my bedroom. It was the slightest creak of a door opening. I froze, my eyes locked on my bedroom door, my body refusing to move. It's probably just the AC nudging a door open. Soft, padded footsteps sounded in the hallway from my bedroom, thumping ever so precisely. They got louder, up to the point I feared what sized being would produce that loud of footsteps on carpet. The footsteps continued, increasing in proximity. When I heard them outside my bedroom, someone was in my house. This someone must have been the one opening the doors, keen on the idea of tormenting me. Maybe some homeless person snuck into my house at one point in the last few days. I heard the faint jingle as something latched onto my doorknob. Then it was turning, and my door gave the slightest creak to let me know that it had been opened. Petrified, I remained completely still. I hastily glanced about my bedroom. I had no windows to escape out of, nothing but my phone, which was resting on my nightstand. I could call the cops, but my door would be completely open any second, and this someone could intervene the call. Who says they're not clutching a knife and prepared to take me down if necessary? This person has been about my house already while I sleep, and I figured if I pretended to be asleep, they would just leave me alone, just as they did the previous nights. Immediately I grabbed my phone, flopped into my bed, and pulled my covers to my chin. The minute I closed my eyes, the door whizzed a slightly larger creak, then told me it was all the way open. Then it was just silence. Whoever had opened my bedroom door was just watching me. I forced all emotion from my expression as I pretended to sleep in my bed. My phone was clutched in a death grip against my chest. My entire body was going still. Suddenly, I felt the hot wisp of someone's breath on my forehead. I shot up in my bed, launching myself against my headboard. My eyes were wild, my chest struggling to move so to keep air going in and out at a steady pace. However, the air caught in my throat as my entire body froze in place. Once I caught sight of the thing that was standing at the edge of the bed, right where I had been laying. Its body was overgrown, with a slight hunch in its spine that told me it was taller than originally perceived. And I say it because there were no definable features that led me to think this thing had a gender. Sure, its body looked humanoid, with 2 arms and 2 legs, but those limbs were long and gangly, with either arm being of equal length to the other. Its skin was wrinkled in some places, such as around its wrist and chest, but other places it looked stretched out, as if the skin there was being tightly pulled against its bones. Its eyes were 2 holes gouged into its head, deep and sunken in, no eyeballs nor eyelids to showcase how this thing could even see. Above the eye holes was a thin layer of greasy hair strands, dark in color, contrasting to this thing's pale and malformed skin. And below all of that, on its face, was a thin and dried out mouth, one that slowly stretched into a tight grin, revealing its set of black and decaying teeth. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. My eyes were frozen on this thing. The creature took a step forward, its legs bumping against the side of my bed. It moved one of their arms backwards before they violently swung it forward, their clawed hands intending to make purchase in me. I managed to flatten myself against the headboard, avoiding its swipe. My breath caught in my throat when I waited for them to do so again, since it had missed me the first time. As predicted, and uncoordinately, the thing swung its arms exactly same as before. My earlier assumption was correct. This thing, with its sunken-in holes for eyes, must have been blind. I let a ragged breath escape my lips, relieved that I had a major advantage over this thing. But the second the breath left my lips, the thing's head snapped up to my exact location, and without a beat, it bent down on its misshapen legs and launched itself at me. By a mere second, I managed to roll over on the bed and hit the floor. I didn't waste another moment and began running, heading straight into my living room. The thing was right behind me, chasing me without so much of a hint of hesitation. It barreled through everything in my house, knocking over my coffee table and a lamp in its desperation to catch me. I sprinted to my front door, which of course was closed now. I snatched my car keys from the hook nearby and heaved the door open. I made it outside onto my porch, and I went to slam the door shut to delay the thing. But its engorged foot stopped the door right before it could close. 2 clawed hands appeared on the sides of the door, clutching the metal frame. Desperately, I still attempted to close the door when I felt the true strength of this thing as it began pushing the door back open. It was way stronger than me, easily opening the door back up despite my opposing force. Quickly, I decided that it was a lost cause. Abandoning it, I dashed to my car. Then, I began driving and didn't stop until I was a few hours out of town. The fear in my spine didn't lessen until I stopped by a motel and bought a room for the night. Even now, as I sit in this motel, typing away into this website, I pray that someone here knows what to do. I've concluded that the thing must have been living in my house all the time, maybe in my guest room, maybe in my backyard, or maybe even squeezing itself under my bed while I sleep. But it must have been looking for me, and each door it left open was its attempt to locate me. The only reason it never found me until now was due to its blindness. It had to be. Otherwise, I would be dead now the first night it was in my bedroom. I don't know if that thing is following me or if it can. I don't know that when I do manage to go to sleep, if I'll wake to it standing before me, my motel door wide open. I don't know, and that is what scares me the most.